At exactly 5 a.m., Officer Daniel Brooks woke to a soft, desperate scratching at his front door. Half asleep, he thought it might be the wind, until he heard it again, louder, trembling, almost pleading. When he opened the door, he froze. A shivering puppy stood there, paw raised, eyes wide with fear, as if begging him for something urgent. Daniel looked around. No owner, no collar. But the puppy refused to leave. The puppy wasn't lost. He wasn't wandering. He had come here for a reason. And when Daniel knelt beside him, the little dog did something no one expected. He grabbed Daniel's pant leg and begged him to follow. What Daniel discovered next shattered his heart. Stay with us, because this story will leave you speechless. Before we start, make sure to hit like and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. It was exactly 5:03 a.m. when Officer Daniel Hayes shot awake to a strange, rhythmic sound coming from his front porch. Knock, scratch, knock, scratch. At first, he thought it was a branch hitting the door. Maybe the wind. Maybe a loose shutter. But then it came again. Louder this time, more deliberate, almost like someone was trying to get his attention. Still half asleep, Daniel rubbed his eyes and swung his legs off the bed. His house was usually quiet at this hour, too quiet for visitors, human or otherwise. He lived on the outskirts of town, where the closest neighbor was half a mile away. Nobody should have been at his door before sunrise. He walked down the hallway, the sound growing sharper with every step. Knock, scratch, whimper. Daniel stopped. A whimper? He flicked on the porch light and opened the door slowly and froze. There, standing on its hind legs, was the tiniest golden puppy he had ever seen. Its little paw was pressed against the wood, the exact way a human would knock. Its fur was damp, its nose muddy, and its big round eyes stared up at him with a mixture of fear and desperation. The puppy took a shaky step back, then immediately stepped forward again, paw raised as if insisting he open the door wider. Daniel blinked. Hey, buddy, where did you come from? The puppy didn't wag its tail. It didn't bark. It didn't act playful the way a puppy its age normally would. Instead, it let out a soft cry, almost a plea, and then turned sharply toward the dark dirt road leading away from his house. Then it came back and knocked again. One paw, one urgent tap. The message was unmistakable. Follow me, please. Now, Daniel stepped outside, the cold morning air brushing against his skin. The sky was still dark, a faded blue hinting at dawn. He crouched down, trying to examine the puppy. Are you lost? He asked softly. But the puppy didn't react to his voice. It only looked at him once, then took several steps toward the road, turned back, and cried again. Something wasn't right. Daniel felt it in his gut, the same instinct that had saved lives throughout his career. Animals didn't behave like this unless something was terribly wrong. The puppy trotted a few feet away, then stopped and waited, trembling. Daniel exhaled deeply and grabbed his jacket. All right, little one, I'm coming. And with that, he followed the desperate puppy into the darkness, unaware that the next few minutes would break his heart. The puppy led Daniel only a few steps down the porch before stopping again, turning back with a frantic little cry. Its tiny paws trembled on the cold ground, and its ears pinned flat against its head. It wasn't just guiding him, it was begging him to hurry. Daniel knelt down, trying to scoop the puppy into his arms. Come here, little guy. You're freezing. But the puppy jerked away, shaking its head in panic. It didn't want comfort. It didn't want warmth. It wanted him to move. Then it ran toward the dirt road again, disappearing briefly into the shadows before returning to tap its paw urgently against Daniel's boot. Tap, tap, tap. A desperate signal. Follow me. Please don't stop. Daniel straightened, narrowing his eyes as he studied the puppy more closely. Its fur was matted with dirt. Its paws were scratched and raw, and around its neck was a frayed piece of rope, torn at the end as if chewed through in desperation. His stomach tightened. This puppy hadn't wandered off from a cozy home. Something far more troubling had happened. Okay, show me, Daniel murmured. The puppy bolted ahead again, but only a few yards, before stopping and looking back. Every movement was tense, purposeful, fearful. Daniel followed slowly, scanning the surroundings. The early morning silence felt unnatural. No birds, no insects, just the sound of the puppy's rapid breaths and its tiny paws crunching across gravel. Suddenly, the puppy ran off the road and darted to the edge of a field. It circled the same spot 3 times, whining louder each time, then ran back to Daniel as if trying to pull him forward. Daniel's officer instinct sharpened. "What's out there?" he whispered under his breath. He approached the spot cautiously. The puppy ran ahead again, its body low to the ground, tail tucked tightly beneath it. It stopped beside a patch of flattened grass, pawing at the earth, crying in distress. Daniel crouched beside it. The grass was bent unnaturally, as if someone or something had been lying there recently. Fresh footprints, small and larger ones, and faint tire tracks leading deeper into the rural stretch. Daniel's pulse quickened. The puppy pushed its nose against his hand, then turned and ran ahead once more, its body trembling violently now. "Something happened here," Daniel whispered. And whatever it was, the tiny puppy seemed determined to lead him straight into the heart of it. Daniel picked up his pace. The puppy didn't slow down. It only cried louder, urging him forward into the deepening mystery. Daniel hesitated only a moment before stepping off the road, following the puppy into the field. The ground was uneven beneath his boots, the grass damp with morning dew, brushing cold against his legs. But the puppy didn't seem to care about the terrain at all. It sprinted forward, stopped, looked back, and cried out, urging him onward. Whatever it was leading him to, it wasn't far. And it wasn't good. Daniel quickened his pace. The landscape around them widened into a quiet, neglected stretch of farmland. No lights, no houses, just a faint orange glow beginning to touch the horizon. The puppy zigzagged nervously, as if torn between running faster and making sure Daniel was still behind it. "Easy, little one," he called softly. But the puppy wasn't listening. It was locked in a single mission: get him to the place where everything went wrong. Soon, Daniel reached a narrow dirt path, almost hidden by overgrown weeds. The puppy bolted down it, its tiny legs moving as fast as they could. Daniel followed, his heart pounding harder with every step. "What are you showing me?" he whispered. The puppy skidded to a stop near a shallow ditch and let out a sharp bark. Its first bark since he'd found it. Not a playful bark. A warning. A cry for urgency. Daniel moved closer and saw more signs of struggle. Patches of disturbed soil, deep claw marks in the mud, and pieces of torn fabric caught on a broken branch nearby. Someone or some animal had fought here. Daniel crouched low, examining the tracks. The indentations were fresh, damp, uneven. His breath caught. These weren't wild animal prints. They were canine. The puppy came up beside him, nudging his arm fiercely with its nose, pulling him toward the ditch. Daniel leaned over the edge, bracing himself for what he might find. At first, he saw nothing but darkness and tangled weeds. Then movement. A faint, barely there rustle. Daniel's hand instinctively went to his radio. "If someone's down there, I'm going to help you," he called out. Another small sound, like a weak groan, echoed from below. The puppy whined anxiously and pawed at the edge of the ditch, its cries becoming louder, more frantic, as if begging him to hurry. Daniel's pulse slammed in his ears. This wasn't just a lost puppy leading him around. This was a rescue mission, one that the tiny animal had been desperately trying to initiate long before dawn. He took a deep breath, braced his feet, and prepared to climb down. Because someone or something desperately needed him. Daniel slid carefully down the slope of the ditch, gripping the roots and rocks for balance. The air felt colder down here, the shadows deeper. Even the sunrise couldn't reach this far into the hollow. Above him, the puppy paced anxiously along the edge, crying louder with every second he disappeared from sight. "Hang on," Daniel murmured, lowering himself the final few feet. "I'm coming." His boots landed in soft, damp earth. The smell of wet soil and something metallic hit him instantly, a faint, unsettling scent that made his throat tighten. Blood. He swallowed hard and flicked on his flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing tall weeds, crushed grass, and a trail of small red smudges leading deeper into the ditch. Daniel's breath caught as he followed the faint streaks. They weren't random. They were purposeful. Someone or something had been dragged. Behind him, the puppy barked again, its tiny voice cracking with fear. "Easy, little one," Daniel called back. But even he could hear the tension in his own voice. He pushed forward, sweeping the flashlight over the ground. That's when he saw them. Fresh paw prints. Large ones. And right beside them, tiny, matching prints. Daniel froze. The puppy hadn't been alone last night. A cold weight settled in his chest. He moved faster now, following the trail with rising dread. The ditch narrowed ahead, forming a small, hidden hollow beneath a fallen tree. As the beam of his flashlight reached inside, he felt his stomach twist. A faint whimper echoed from the darkness. Not the puppy's voice. Deeper, weaker. Daniel crouched down, heart hammering. "Hello? Can you hear me?" he called softly. There was a rustle, then another broken whine. The puppy above barked desperately, scratching at the edge of the ditch as if begging him to hurry. Daniel angled the flashlight again, and something finally came into view. A patch of fur, golden, just like the puppy's, motionless, except for a slight, trembling rise and fall of breath. An adult dog, curled tightly, body twisted unnaturally, sides heaving with shallow, painful breaths. Mud clung to its coat, and deep scratches lined its legs. The dog's head lifted weakly at the sound of Daniel's voice, but it couldn't even stand. Daniel felt the air leave his lungs. This was the puppy's mother, and she was barely holding on. He lifted his radio with urgency. "Dispatch, this is Officer Hayes. I need emergency animal rescue at my location. Possible severe trauma." Above him, the puppy let out a howl so heartbreaking it echoed across the empty field. Daniel clenched his jaw. The real nightmare was just beginning. The moment Daniel stepped closer to the injured dog, the tiny puppy above exploded into panicked cries. It paced along the ditch's rim, running back and forth so frantically that its paws kicked loose pebbles down onto Daniel's shoulders. Every whine grew sharper, more desperate, an unmistakable plea. "Help her. Please help her." Daniel knelt beside the injured mother dog, lowering his voice. "Hey, it's okay. I'm here now." But the dog flinched, her breathing uneven and shallow. She attempted to lift her head again, but the effort sent a violent tremor through her entire body. Daniel's heart twisted painfully. She had fought hard, too hard, and she was losing strength. The flashlight beam revealed the extent of her ordeal, deep scrapes along her side, bruising across her ribs, and dirt packed into matted fur, as if she had been dragged or thrown. Her back leg lay at an unnatural angle. The puppy let out a howl, so piercing it cut through the morning air. Daniel looked up. "I know, little one. I know." But the puppy wasn't simply crying. It began pawing wildly at the dirt, trying to climb down the steep slope. Its tiny claws scraped helplessly, slipping each time. Daniel quickly stood and extended a hand upward. "No, stay there. You'll fall." But the puppy ignored him, driven by pure instinct. It finally managed to slide halfway down before tumbling the last few feet, rolling into a clump of grass and scrambling upright again immediately. It limped, one paw slightly injured from the fall, yet rushed straight to its mother, pressing its tiny body against her neck. The mother dog let out a soft, broken whimper. That single sound cut deeper than anything Daniel had heard in years. The puppy nudged her harder, licking her face, pawing gently, trying everything to wake her fully. Its cries transformed into tiny, trembling sobs, the heartbreaking sound of a baby terrified of losing the only family it had. Daniel swallowed the lump in his throat and knelt again. "I'm going to help her. I promise." He checked her pulse. Weak, fading. He grabbed his radio again, urgency overtaking his voice. "Dispatch, I need rescue ETA. Condition is critical. Repeat, critical." A crackled reply came through. 6 minutes out. 6 minutes. To a dying dog, that might be too long. Daniel removed his jacket and gently draped it over the mother dog, trying to preserve what little warmth she had. The puppy immediately curled beside her beneath the fabric, refusing to leave her even for a moment. Daniel watched them, two lives clinging to each other, one slipping away, one fighting to save her. His jaw tightened. Whatever happened here, he needed to find out. But first, He had to keep her alive. Daniel steadied his breathing as he crouched beside the injured mother dog. Up close, her condition was even worse than he had feared. Her breaths were shallow, uneven, each inhale sounding like it scraped painfully against her ribs. Her eyes fluttered half open, then closed again as if every movement drained what little strength she had left. The puppy, trembling violently, pressed its tiny head under her chin, trying to comfort her. Its soft whimpers echoed in the still morning air. Daniel felt the sound settle heavy in his chest. She had been fighting for hours, alone, in pain, with only her baby desperately trying to save her. "Hang in there," Daniel whispered, his voice breaking despite himself. "Help is on the way." He carefully slid his hands under her head, checking for swelling, checking for wounds. She didn't resist, but her muscles twitched weakly at every touch. When he reached her side, he felt something that made his stomach drop. A deep indentation beneath her ribs. A blow. A hard one. He froze. This wasn't caused by a fall. It was caused by someone. The puppy looked up at him, as if sensing the shift in his emotions. Its eyes were wide, frightened, pleading. Daniel exhaled shakily. "I'm so sorry this happened to you," he murmured, his hand brushing gently over the mother's muddy fur. The mother dog let out a faint, trembling exhale, almost like she was trying to reassure her puppy. The tiny one responded instantly, licking her face and pawing her cheek, desperate for her to stay awake. Daniel blinked away the sting in his eyes. He had seen injured animals before. Sick animals. Stray animals. But this was different. This wasn't an accident of nature. This was a dog who had endured something cruel, something intentional. And her puppy had run miles alone at only a few weeks old, knocking on doors until someone finally listened. "Smart little hero," Daniel whispered, glancing at the tiny pup. "You didn't give up on her." A weak sound escaped the mother dog's throat. Daniel leaned in instinctively. She was trying to lift her head again, but her body shook violently, and she collapsed back into the dirt with a painful cry. The puppy panicked, climbing partially onto her neck, whining, nudging, begging her to get up. Daniel gently separated them, just enough to ease pressure off her injuries. "Easy, little one, let me help her breathe." The mother dog's chest rose again, barely, and her eyes flickered open for the briefest moment. She wasn't looking at Daniel. She was looking at her puppy, a mother's final instinct, a final reassurance. Then her head slipped weakly back into Daniel's hands. He felt her pulse. Still there, faint, but there. Relief washed through him. "She's fighting," he whispered. "She's still fighting." Sirens pierced the distance, growing louder, closer, urgent. Animal rescue was arriving. Daniel looked at the tiny puppy, who stared back with tear-wet eyes. "We're not losing her," Daniel vowed softly. "Not today." The sirens grew louder, echoing through the wide, empty fields until the rescue truck finally appeared at the top of the hill. The flashing lights painted streaks of red and blue across the ditch, but the injured mother dog didn't react. She lay still, her breaths uneven, her eyelids fluttering as if they were too heavy to keep open. The puppy pressed itself tighter against her, refusing to move even as the rescue team hurried down the slope. "Officer Hayes," the lead rescuer called. "Where is she?" "Here," Daniel answered, voice strained. "She's critical. Very weak pulse. Possible internal injuries and trauma." The rescuers knelt beside him, their faces darkening as they examined her condition. One of them carefully checked her pulse, his brows tightening. "She's fading. We need to move fast." The puppy let out a terrified whine, biting onto Daniel's sleeve as if begging him not to let them take her away. Daniel gently rubbed the pup's head. "They're here to help her, little one. Let them save her." But the puppy's panic only grew. It attempted to climb onto the stretcher as the rescuers slid it beneath the mother dog. Its tiny paws trembled violently, and tears streaked its muddy face. "She won't survive transport unless we stabilize her first," one medic murmured. "Oxygen. 4 fluids. Go." They worked quickly, placing a mask over her muzzle, inserting a small catheter, checking her vitals with rapid precision. Daniel watched every movement, his heart pounding with dread. The mother dog let out a weak, muffled cry as they lifted her onto the stretcher. The puppy's entire body jolted, and it immediately tried to climb up with her, refusing to be left behind. Daniel scooped the puppy into his arms, just in time. "I've got you," he whispered, holding it against his chest as it kicked and cried. "You'll see her again. I promise." But even as he said it, he wasn't sure. The rescuers secured the stretcher and began moving up the slope. "We need to go now," the lead medic shouted. Daniel followed, holding the puppy tightly. Its tiny heart thumped wildly against his chest, each beat full of fear and desperation. When they reached the truck, the medics loaded the mother dog inside and continued stabilizing her. Tubes, monitors, oxygen, the works. She didn't move. The puppy stared, trembling uncontrollably, its cries reduced to breathless whimpers. Daniel pressed a hand over its back. "Stay strong, little hero," he whispered. "If you hadn't found me, she wouldn't have had a chance at all." As the rescue truck sped toward the animal hospital, Daniel remained behind at the scene, the puppy still trembling in his arms. The morning sun was finally rising, casting light across the field, light that revealed details he hadn't noticed before. And the moment he saw them, his breath stalled. Because nothing about this scene looked accidental. Daniel gently set the puppy down so it could rest on the soft grass, but the tiny dog refused to leave his side, its eyes fixed anxiously on the spot where its mother had been. Daniel crouched low, scanning the ground carefully. There, beneath the disturbed soil, was something half-buried. He brushed the dirt aside. Rope, frayed, torn at one end. The same kind of rope he'd seen around the puppy's neck. His pulse spiked. Someone had tied these dogs up. Someone had tried to restrain them. And then something had gone terribly wrong. He continued examining the area. A few feet away, he found deeper indentations in the soil shaped like boots. Large ones. Heavy prints pressed into the earth with force, as if someone had struggled here. The puppy whimpered, nudging Daniel's leg with its nose. "I see it," Daniel muttered, eyes narrowing. Then his flashlight beam caught something else, glinting faintly from the mud. He reached down and picked it up. A metal buckle, bent, snapped clean in half. It didn't belong to nature. It belonged to equipment, a collar, a harness, something meant to restrain a dog. Daniel felt a cold shiver run through him. "This wasn't an accident," he whispered. He noticed drag marks leading from the ditch up toward the road. Long, deep grooves in the dirt, as if the mother dog had been pulled, hard, against her will. The puppy's cries grew sharper, more fearful. Daniel knelt and pulled it close. "It's okay. I'm here. I'm going to find out what happened." The puppy buried its face against his uniform, its tiny body shaking. Daniel stood slowly, jaw tightening, instincts fully awake now. He followed the drag marks toward the road, and stopped when he saw the last piece of the puzzle. Tire tracks. Fresh ones. Not from a rescue truck. Not from a passing car. These tracks led directly away from the scene and disappeared into the abandoned farmland. Daniel felt anger rise in his chest, cold, controlled, dangerous. Someone had harmed the mother dog. Someone had dumped her here to die, and her puppy had run miles in the dark trying to find help. Daniel looked down at the little dog shaking beside him. "Don't worry," he whispered, lifting it gently. "I won't let them get away with this." The investigation had just begun. Daniel held the puppy close as he walked back toward his patrol car, its tiny heartbeat trembling beneath his palm. The little dog kept glancing over its shoulder, letting out soft, broken whimpers, afraid, confused, but still desperately hopeful that its mother would return. Daniel opened the back door and carefully wrapped the puppy in a blanket he kept in the trunk. "You're safe now," he murmured. "But I need to know who did this to you." The puppy shivered, curling into the warmth of the blanket. Its eyes were dull with exhaustion, but alert, watching Daniel closely, trusting him in the only way a frightened animal could. Daniel gently lifted the frayed rope around its neck and examined it again. The edge wasn't worn naturally. It had been chewed through. He ran his thumb across the rough fibers, imagining the scene. A scared mother, a terrified puppy, both tied up, one chewing desperately to free her baby, even as she herself remained trapped. His chest tightened. He placed the puppy in the passenger seat, and it immediately pressed against the door, staring out at the road where its mother had been taken. Daniel started the engine and drove toward the animal hospital, but his mind raced with questions. When he arrived, a vet technician met him outside. "Officer Hayes? They're stabilizing the mother now. It's touch and go." Daniel nodded, then motioned toward the puppy. "Can you scan for a microchip?" The technician gently lifted the puppy and carried it inside. Daniel followed close behind, anxiety prickling through him. They placed the puppy on a table, and the scanner beeped softly as it moved across the fur. Then a chirp, a chip, a registered one. The technician's eyebrows rose. "We have a match." She typed quickly into the database. Daniel leaned forward, breath tight. A name appeared, then an address, then a note in the file that made Daniel's blood run cold. Reported to Animal Control for suspected backyard breeding. Prior warnings issued. Owner under investigation. Daniel clenched his jaw. "So they were right," he muttered. The technician looked up, sympathy in her eyes. These dogs weren't just strays. They were victims. Victims someone had tried to discard. The puppy whimpered softly on the table, as if it understood every word. Daniel gently scooped it into his arms again. "You didn't just run for help," he whispered. "You ran from danger." He looked at the microchip report one more time, anger simmering. "Now I know who hurt your family," he said quietly. "And I'm coming for them." The puppy pressed its tiny head against his chest as if agreeing. The past wasn't a mystery anymore. It was a motive, and a trail Daniel was determined to follow. Daniel stepped out of the exam room, the microchip report clenched in his hand. The hallway lights buzzed softly, but to him, everything felt deafeningly silent. The puppy curled against his chest, exhausted from fear and crying, yet still refusing to let go of him. He looked down at the trembling little creature. "I'm not letting this happen to you again," he whispered. With the mother dog fighting for her life in surgery, Daniel knew there was no time to waste. Whoever had done this might still be nearby. And worse, they might have other animals in danger. He headed straight to his patrol car, securing the puppy safely inside before starting the engine. The address from the microchip report appeared on his dashboard screen. A rundown property located 5 miles outside town. Multiple prior warnings. Suspicion of illegal breeding. Neighbors reporting dogs crying at night. A pattern. A trail. And now a near-fatal attack. As Daniel drove, the morning sun rose completely, revealing the vast farmlands that stretched endlessly along the back roads. But there was a heaviness to the light, as if the land itself remembered what had happened there. He slowed as he approached the abandoned-looking property. The fence leaned to one side, sections broken or missing entirely. Old kennels littered the yard, many rusted, some collapsed. A chill crawled down Daniel's spine. He parked a safe distance away and radioed dispatch. "This is Officer Hayes. I'm at the owner's listed address. I'm investigating potential animal cruelty and illegal breeding. Request backup. Copy, Officer Hayes. Units en route." Before backup could arrive, Daniel noticed something. Fresh tire tracks in the dirt, matching the same pattern he had seen near the ditch. His pulse kicked up. Someone had been here recently. He stepped through the broken gate, careful not to disturb the ground before the crime scene team could analyze it. The smell hit him first, a mix of old waste, damp wood, and something metallic. A scent that carried memories of suffering. Daniel moved slowly toward the kennels. Empty, empty. And then, one kennel door hung open, rope remnants still tied to its bars. The same frayed rope he'd found on the puppy. His jaw tightened. "This is where they were kept," he muttered. He crouched and examined the ground, finding more signs, paw prints, scattered kibble, and a cracked metal bowl with dried blood on the rim. The wind rustled nearby bushes, and Daniel edged closer, hand on his holster. A shadow moved. Before he could react, a figure bolted from behind the shed, sprinting toward the woods. Daniel's heart surged. The person responsible was running, and he wasn't getting away. Daniel didn't hesitate. The moment the shadowed figure bolted from behind the shed, he sprinted after him, boots pounding against the hard-packed dirt. The man was fast, panicked, stumbling, desperate. But Daniel had years of training and adrenaline on his side. "Stop. Police," he shouted. The figure didn't stop. He tore across the broken field, crashing through tall weeds, kicking up dust as he ran. The sun had risen fully now, casting long shadows that flickered across the landscape. Daniel pushed harder, the microchip report clenched in his pocket, rage burning through him. This was the man who had tied the dogs up, who had beaten the mother, who had left her to die in a ditch. And he was not getting away. The man looked back once, just once, and that was his mistake. His foot caught on a half-buried tire, and he went sprawling face first into the dirt. Daniel was on him in seconds, pinning him down before he could rise. "Don't move," Daniel commanded, voice sharp with fury. The man struggled wildly, but Daniel tightened his grip. "You're under arrest for animal cruelty, illegal breeding, and abandonment." "I didn't do anything," the man snarled, spitting dirt. "They were just animals." Daniel froze. Just animals. Those words cracked something inside him. He grabbed the man's collar and pulled him halfway upright. "A puppy ran miles in the freezing dark to save its dying mother," he growled. "She fought until her body gave out. And you call them just animals?" The man scoffed, trying to jerk away. "That dog was worthless. Sick, weak, wasn't worth feeding. I was getting rid of her, that's all." Daniel's jaw tightened so hard it hurt. His fingers curled involuntarily. "You dumped her to die," he said slowly, each word trembling with barely contained anger. "And you left her newborn puppy alone in the cold." "She chewed through the rope," the man snapped. "Stupid mutt. Should have drowned her when I had the chance." That was it. Backup sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer, but Daniel's focus stayed locked on the monster beneath him. For a moment, he wasn't looking at an offender. He was looking at the reason good dogs suffer. The reason innocent animals cry in pain. The reason a tiny puppy had knocked at his door at 5 a.m., desperate and alone. Daniel cuffed him with a swift, practiced motion. "You're done," he said firmly. "You won't hurt another living soul." As deputies arrived and took the man into custody, Daniel stood back, breathing hard, his heart still racing with fury and something else. Relief. Justice had begun, but the fight wasn't over. He hurried to his patrol car, where the puppy had been waiting anxiously. The moment he opened the door, the little dog scrambled onto his lap, whimpering, shaking, searching his face for answers. Daniel held it close. "It's okay," he whispered. "He won't touch you again." The puppy burrowed into his chest, clinging to the only safety it had ever known. Now there was only one question left. Could the mother be saved? And Daniel wasn't ready for the answer. He headed straight for the hospital. The animal hospital parking lot was quiet when Daniel arrived, but inside, the air pulsed with urgency. The moment he stepped through the doors, the puppy pressed tightly against his chest. A nurse rushed toward him. "Officer Hayes, they're still working on her," she said softly. "It's serious." Daniel nodded, swallowing the tightness in his throat. "I understand. Please, just keep fighting for her." The puppy whimpered, its tiny claws gripping Daniel's uniform, as if afraid he might disappear next. He stroked his head gently. "She's strong," he whispered. "She's made it this far." A doctor emerged from the surgical wing, mask lowered. Exhaustion painted across her face. Daniel braced himself. But before she could speak, another staff member approached Daniel with a clipboard. "Officer Hayes, we were updated by dispatch. They said you apprehended the suspect." Daniel's jaw tightened. "He's in custody. He won't hurt them again." The staff exchanged relieved glances. Several had already seen the mother dog's injuries. They knew exactly what kind of person could cause that level of harm. The doctor stepped forward. "People like him don't deserve animals," she murmured. "We're grateful you brought her in when you did." Daniel exhaled slowly, emotion tightening his chest. "It wasn't me," he said quietly. "It was her puppy. That little one saved her." The doctor looked down at the trembling dog in Daniel's arms, her expression softening. "Then this tiny hero deserves a medal." As they spoke, officers entered the hospital lobby to collect Daniel's statement. The puppy tensed immediately, mistaking the uniforms for danger. Daniel held it closer. "You're safe," he soothed. "They're good guys." One officer approached gently. Hayes, we got the man processed. Charges are stacking up: cruelty, neglect, illegal breeding, abandonment. He's not getting out anytime soon. Good. Daniel nodded. Animals don't ask much from humans. The least we can do is protect them. The puppy let out a soft cry, its ears drooping. It didn't understand the legal victory. It only understood one thing: its mother was still in danger. Daniel knelt down, letting the puppy stand on the floor. Its tiny paws carried it toward the surgery doors, where it sat trembling, waiting, hoping, listening for any sign of the dog who had loved it enough to fight until her last breath. The doctor placed a gentle hand on Daniel's shoulder. "We're doing everything we can," she said. "She isn't giving up." Daniel looked at the puppy, its eyes glued to the doors. "Neither are we," he whispered. Justice had been served. Now all that mattered was life. The small digital clock on the wall blinked 9:12 a.m. as Daniel sat in the waiting room, elbows on his knees, hands clasped tightly. The puppy lay curled in his lap, its tiny body trembling every few minutes, as if a cold memory kept crawling back through its bones. Every now and then, it would lift its head and stare at the double doors leading to surgery. Then it would whimper softly, a cry so fragile it cut through the room like glass. Daniel stroked its fur gently. "She's fighting," he whispered. "She's doing everything she can." But the truth was more complicated. He'd seen the mother dog's injuries up close. He'd felt her fading pulse. He knew how close she had been to dying in that ditch. The fact that she had survived this long was a miracle, one powered entirely by her will to protect her baby. A nurse stepped into the waiting area, holding a clipboard. Daniel sat up instantly, the puppy jolting awake. "Officer Hayes?" she asked. He stood, heart pounding. "Yes." "Is she?" The nurse raised a calming hand. "She's still in surgery. They're repairing internal damage and stabilizing her leg. The next 30 minutes are critical." The puppy let out a soft, desperate sound, as if it sensed the weight of the moment. The nurse knelt down and offered the puppy her hand. "You're a brave little one, aren't you?" she murmured. "You saved her." The puppy sniffed her fingers, but didn't move from Daniel's lap. Its eyes were locked on the surgery doors, wide and glistening. Minutes passed, then more minutes. Each second stretched painfully thin. Daniel stood and paced, unable to sit still. His mind replayed everything, finding the ditch, seeing the mother dog struggle to breathe, feeling her pulse slip through his fingers. The fear crawled up his chest with every memory. Finally, the doors swung open. The veterinarian stepped out, still wearing her surgical cap, exhaustion on her face, but not defeat. Daniel rushed toward her, the puppy scrambling to stay on his shoulder. "Doctor," he breathed. She exhaled, then allowed the faintest smile. She made it through surgery. Daniel shut his eyes for a moment, relief washing over him like a wave. But the doctor continued gently. "She's not out of danger yet. She's stable, but very weak. She'll need time, care, safety." The puppy whined again, pawing at Daniel's chest. The doctor looked at the tiny dog and softened. "You can see her. She'll hear you, both of you." Daniel felt the puppy tense with anticipation. They were about to reunite. And whether the mother survived the next hours or not, her baby would be by her side. The recovery room was quiet, lit by the soft glow of a single overhead lamp. Machines hummed steadily, each beep marking another second the mother dog held on to life. Daniel stepped inside slowly, the puppy in his arms trembling with a mixture of fear and longing. When the puppy spotted its mother on the padded bed, it let out a tiny gasp-like cry, half relief, half heartbreak. The little dog squirmed, desperate to get down. Daniel gently lowered it onto the floor. The moment its paws touched the ground, the puppy ran, wobbling, whimpering, unsteady but determined. It scrambled onto the bed, pressing itself against its mother's side, nuzzling her face with frantic urgency. The mother dog's eyes fluttered open, barely. Exhaustion weighed heavily on her, but when she felt her puppy's warmth, her tail moved. Just once. A weak but unmistakable sign of love. Daniel's chest tightened. He had seen reunions before, but nothing like this. This was survival meeting hope. Pain meeting purpose. A mother assuring her baby she was still here, still fighting. The puppy curled into her neck and finally went still, letting out a long, shaky sigh. The kind that only comes when a fear too heavy for a tiny heart finally lifts. A nurse approached Daniel quietly. She responds best when the puppy is near, she said softly. It keeps her calm. Daniel nodded, unable to tear his eyes away. Over the next few days, Daniel visited constantly, not because he had to, but because he couldn't stay away. The puppy had grown attached to him, following him everywhere when not at its mother's side. It would curl in his lap, nibble at his boots, whine softly until he picked it up. Each visit, he brought treats, blankets, toys. Each visit, the mother dog grew a little stronger. Each visit, the puppy looked at him with eyes that said, "Don't leave us." One afternoon, the vet approached with a hopeful smile. "She's recovering well. Slow but steady. She'll walk again. She'll live." Daniel exhaled deeply, emotion swelling in his chest. The vet hesitated before asking, "Officer Hayes, have you considered adopting them? They trust you more than anyone." Daniel looked at the puppy curled against his boot, then at the mother dog resting peacefully with her eyes half open, watching him. A new home, a new beginning, a promise. He smiled softly. "Yes," he said. And the puppy, as if understanding every word, wagged its tiny tail for the very first time. 3 months passed. The cold mornings of winter had given way to gentle spring sunlight, and Daniel's once quiet home was now full of life. The mother dog, whom Daniel had named Grace, walked confidently again, her strength fully restored. And the puppy, now bigger, healthier, and endlessly mischievous, answered to the name Buddy. Where Grace was calm and wise, Buddy was all energy and devotion, especially toward Daniel. They were a family now. But there was one thing about Buddy that never changed. Every morning, at exactly 5 a.m., without fail, knock, tap, scratch, Daniel would hear the soft sound at his front door, just like the very first day they met. The first morning it happened, he'd rushed out in alarm, thinking something was wrong. But instead of danger, he'd found Buddy sitting proudly on his hind legs, one paw resting on the wood, tail wagging. At first, Daniel had laughed. "What are you doing, little guy?" But as the days passed, Buddy continued doing it, always at 5 a.m., always with the same gentle knock. And Daniel eventually understood. Buddy wasn't calling him for help anymore. He was calling him for love, for a good morning, for reassurance, for the simple joy of waking up with the person who saved his family. On this particular morning, Daniel opened the door to find Buddy waiting with bright eyes and his little paw raised. Grace sat behind him, watching with patient affection. "Good morning, you too," Daniel said, kneeling to pull them both into a hug. Buddy showered him with excited licks, while Grace pressed her head gently against his shoulder, a soft rumble of gratitude in her chest. As Daniel sat with them on the porch, the sun rising over the fields, he looked out at the world that had brought all three of them together, through pain, fear, desperation, and hope. "You saved her life, Buddy," Daniel whispered. "And you changed mine." Buddy tilted his head as if understanding every word, then placed his paw gently on Daniel's knee. A quiet, symbolic gesture. "I'm here. We're safe now. And we're together." Grace lay beside them, her eyes half closed in peace. The scars on her body remained, but the wounds in her heart were healing, because her puppy had never given up on her. Because Daniel had stepped into their story at the exact moment they needed him. Because love, at its purest, is rescue. Buddy settled happily between them, tail thumping softly against the wooden porch. And for the first time in months, maybe years, Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Home. The kind of home built not with walls, but with loyalty. Not with furniture, but with forgiveness. Not with silence, but with the gentle sound of a puppy's morning knock. Daniel smiled. "Come on, Buddy. Grace. Let's start our day." The little family walked inside together. A mother saved, a puppy redeemed, and a man forever changed by a 5 a.m. knock that broke his heart and rebuilt his life.